Hi, everybody. Parnell Woodard from the Pivot Point. Welcome to today's episode. Excited to bring to you today Eric Laylon. Eric is a seasoned digital marketing consultant with over 15 years of assistance, 15 years of experience, easy for you to say, assisting brands, agencies, and local businesses enhancing their online presence. He connects with clients to help them target the audiences through tailored marketing plans that combine display, search engine, and social media engagement. So welcome, Eric, to the Pivot Point. Thanks for taking a little time this morning to chat with us.
Yeah, excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'll jump right in terms of the kind of the corporate world versus starting your own business. And was there a moment or kind of a series of events that made you think about entrepreneurship really being the path for you going forward?
Yeah, so my career path has been such that I've worked in marketing and sales and business development for a very long time. My dad actually was in sales for like 35 years. So he worked for the same company back when that was a thing for 35 years. Pretty cool. But that was my lens into, the sales environment was, the effectiveness that my dad had at it. And he was the number one salesperson in his company for literally decades almost. And so that was the lens that I had for sales. And so for me, like getting into marketing and business development and sales, sales was not a dirty word. And so for me, it was a profession. One of the first books that I ever got was called The Accidental Salesperson. And it's kind of dated now, but I got it back in like 2001 and really aligned with like how to get into the sales environment with the right, mental state to be successful. And it's a profession, right? It's something that you need to have and workshop skills at. So, and I saw my dad do it. My dad used to listen to podcast or listen to cassette tapes and audiobooks in the car. He would have loved podcasts back in the day because it would have been something that he would have been really engaged on. But that was, again, something that, he gave me not only the mentorship from, how he did it, but then he provided me with skill sets and books and things that I could take into this, career that I was going into. And along that path, like when I was working at the agency and working in the seat of business development, a lot of people left to start their own companies and do their own things. So it was always around that. And I spent a very long time in the agency that I was at. I was there for, 15, 16 years, working in that environment and seeing people go and do their own things. But I was really successful at what I was doing within the agency, working with clients. I then left that agency to go into ad tech. And when I did, I left those clients behind because they did not operate in the world that I was working at when I left the agency to go into ad tech. And, I would say about a year later, I had some people reaching out to me, but really it was something that I felt God pushing me into. So I'm a faith-based person. So, one of the things that I lean on is my guidance comes from God. And so as I was, in this environment of ad tech, I really felt that, it was something that God was pushing me to pursue. He gave me gifts and talents and abilities to help people. And, from the start of my career, that's what I've tried to do is put those services to work to help others. And so in, March, April timeframe, I think it was 2022, I just really felt that nudge to start my own company. And so I did. And it was really born out of the local networking that I was doing, but the clients that I, had coming to me and saying, hey, listen, you helped us at this other company and we still want you to help us as we move forward. So that's kind of the nudge that I got, the background that I got really came from the influence my dad had, but really just, again, putting those gifts and talents to work that God had given me.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It sounds like that the thing that kind of got you over the hump, right? And that pivot point, if you will, was the clients, your former clients reaching back out to you saying, Eric, can you help us?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an interesting story, right? Everybody enters entrepreneurship in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some people kind of fall into it. Some people make a conscious decision to get into it. You had some clients out, reaching out for you, and that might have been the nudge that kind of got you over the hump. Was there a particular problem that, in terms of starting EJL Marketing, was there a problem that you were trying to solve for the clients or a passion you really wanted to pursue?
Yeah, so there was a specific one that my client that's now been with me, and they were my first client. They actually are a dog breeder. They specifically do doodles. So they breed all types of doodles. And so they're in my local networking. And I'd actually never worked with them before. So while a lot of my clients are ones that I had previously engaged with, the very first client for EJL Marketing was not somebody I'd ever worked before with, but they were actually somebody that was in my local networking. And so like they had actually, learned about me through my clients and other people that I had been around, and they had an issue with their website. And so that issue that they had, started conversations with me, and I was able to diagnose and solve that issue, that pain point. But when that happened, like I didn't have the shell of a company to put that under, right? Because at that time I was only working in ad tech in the corporate environment, and they didn't work with local businesses. So my ability to help them would not have been in the capacity of my own business. So that was, again, and it was cool going through that whole scenario, because that whole time period, I really did feel God like pushing me into this direction. And it was weird because it was in, I was doing devotions and doing my Bible reading, like it just, and that's how the Holy Spirit works. Like, there's these promptings that happen, and like so like these markers were showing up and showing up and showing up. So like when she came to me and said, this is a problem, this is an issue, and like how do we solve it, it was a pretty easy one to diagnose and then move forward. But I had to have the shell of the business to put everything under. So then that's where obviously I spun it forward and was I made EJL Marketing a legal entity and
Right.
started doing that.
So once that happened and you had that first client, did you spend any more time thinking about the business entity and getting those services up and running? What were some of the first steps you took?
Yeah, and for me, I had, and I think most entrepreneurs, right, when they get into this, they're not going into a field that they don't know at all, right? They're usually spinning this forward in a capacity that they're already familiar with. So like for me, I've had umpteen amount of years working in a digital agency. So like I knew the ins and outs, but like when I was in that seat at the agency, I had, people that I set up to do the work. But like, whereas I know how to talk about, Google ads, I knew how to, help with SEO. I wasn't doing the actual physical labor. Now I had done those things. Like I had run Google campaigns. I had built my own website. I did my own SEO. I've run email marketing campaigns. So I'd functionally done all these areas, but it was always usually for myself or to test it. And so this was the first opportunity to be able to dive in and help a client with their pain point. Without that history of the years that I spent in the environment, I would never have been able to solve the issue that she had and turn the thing around. So, and I'll dive into it just because it's a fascinating story for marketers. If there's marketers that are listening to this, you'll get a kick out of it. But this business that she has, dog breeding, exploded over the days, right? So
Yeah.
when COVID happened, everybody was getting a dog. And so I think she had like 150 leads that 1 month. So it was just massive business model for her, and it exploded. And then she got a new website, and then she noticed that things were dwindling. Into 2021 and 22, like things were tapering quickly after she had launched the new website. And she was trying to understand, was it economics? Was it, an issue with her marketing? She wasn't really understanding what was going on. So that's what brought her to me, and that connection was made. Here, as I was, again, sourcing out the pain point, the new website had launched, and they left the developer tags within the website to not follow the site itself. So when you are working on a website, you don't want it to be found by the search engines, but when you release it to the world, you want the search engines to find it. So those developer tags of no follow tags were in there. So I was able to obviously find that, roll those out, get rid of them, and allow the search engines to find it. So again, without having that history and that background within the digital marketing environment and helping with SEO, these were things that obviously I would never have even been able to comprehend. So that history and that background gave me that experience to be able to support her in her efforts. And then it started to spin forward to be able to then help others that were coming to me. And so I just leaned on that expertise that I had. But functionally, like I needed to do it. And the more you do things, the more you learn things, you fail forward, right?
Yeah, and the core skill set you have, right? That's easy. That's a comfort zone. But outside of that, the whole concept of running a business, right? You've got bookkeeping, you've got legal issues, you've got any number of different things that you have to start to think about. And that's an uncomfortable area for a lot of people as they step into entrepreneurialism. What did you do there in terms of people or resources that you could tap into to help you with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Parnell, because that's where my local network was fantastic. So there's a couple networks that I'm into that are local, and the one that I go to religiously, and it's actually a Christian business network. So it also aligns with my faith. But Believers in Business is a fantastic networking group that I belong to. And in that network, there's a lot of great people. So my CPA comes from there. There's legal advice that I've gotten from the people that are in that group. There's actually a growth mentor that's in that group that gave me a lot of great advice as I was getting things kicked off. So fantastic resource to be able to support the efforts that spun this thing forward. And again, conversely, that's where I've gotten business from to help others, and it's a fantastic group. Networking has been something that I've really built my entire business off of.
Yeah, you have EJL, but you also still have a corporate job. Talk to me a little bit about the security of the corporate job and the security of your own firm, and then how they feel differently to you.
Yeah, no, it's another great question because it's tough. Like there's a lot on my plate all the time. I also have a lot of kids. I have 5 kids, and I'm into coaching, and I give my time to different charities. So it's a very busy life, but I love it. Like again, throughout my life, like there's always been a lot going on. My mom always said that like I had a lot of balls in the air that I was juggling, and I think that just set me up for this life that I have. But working in a corporate setting and having EJL Marketing is one that when I came to Simplify, I was very upfront and transparent about the fact that I had this thing on the side because I didn't want to hide it. And a lot of corporate entities do not want to have people split their time, but Simplify is different. Actually, one of the tenets internally at Simplify is entrepreneurship. I don't think they want everybody out there doing it, but like they want people thinking in this capacity of how to think outside the box, and really that's what entrepreneurship makes you do. So when you look at again these two things, they're very symbiotic. They flow and cross paths all the time because I have clients that are on both sides of the spectrum working in these two different areas. So when I again sit in my corporate day job, like I'm dealing in ad tech, so I'm helping with connected TV and, digital display and all these things within the ad tech environment. But on the side, when I'm working with local clients, the issues and pain points that they have with their local marketing, there's intersections with my day job at Simplify. So like, they're having to, build their brand and do their marketing just like the clients that I have on my day job. So again, there's a lot of synergies between the two, and it makes me really good at both. And, it does, again, get taxing when it comes to time management. But I'm also 46 years old. Like, not that I know it all, but like I would not have been able to do this, when I was, 25, 28,
Sure.
and 35.
Sure.
So like, again, I think, God sets these markers up. He sets this path up, and it enables you to, again, use those experiences to be successful. Staying on task and getting things done are skill sets. It's going back to, the sales profession is, learning and developing these skill sets so you can navigate it and navigate it well.
Yeah. Is there a point where you with EJL where you would reach critical mass where you would feel comfortable stepping off the corporate, escalator, if you will, to be able to stay more focused on that? A lot of folks that I work with, they like the idea of a side hustle. A lot of them have side hustles, right, to get started. But a lot of people struggle with where's that point where they step off that corporate escalator. Is there a point for you where you would feel comfortable doing that?
Now, I don't know at this stage, no, because they both feed into each other so well, and I keep EJL small. Like I am truly dedicated to what I do at Simplify. Obviously, I love what I do there. The people are great. The platform's great. The things that I can do in that environment are really beneficial to both sides. To the people that I work with in both entities. For me, like and this goes back to a conversation that I had with my growth mentor when I was starting, EJL Marketing. He had said he was like I don't want to say his mistake, but like his path forward into entrepreneurship is he jumped right into it 2 feet, left the corporate world, and went right into his business. And he said he wished he would have done the opposite, where he was aligned in this company thing in the corporate job, and also have his his side project as he got it ramped up. So for me, to answer your question, I don't know. Like, I don't know what God has in store for me. I mean, maybe tomorrow it all changes, but right now I'm able to help so many people in these different seats. And it pops up every time, like every day. Like yesterday, I had somebody in the local area found me through Google Business, and it was a phone call that generated into a meeting that generated into me helping them. So
well, that's good. In talking about being a business owner, are there any misconceptions that you had about entrepreneurship before you got into it, before you started?
Yeah, I think the main misconception that I had is that it was going to be super hard, and I don't want to paint this picture like it's easy, but like there's so many people that are out there that are willing to help. And I think, one of the misconceptions is that like, you have to do it all yourself. And that is obviously not the case. And like getting into my local networking group, helped me exponentially be able to lean on others that had gone through that process. So that's where, you look at, the resources that are out there. There are many, and, you just have to be able to be comfortable in your own skin to ask for help.
Along those lines, are there certain things in terms of aspects of running a business that are easier than you anticipated, or conversely, things that might have been harder than you anticipated?
Yeah, I think the easy thing is just leaning on the, experiences that I've had, the relationships that I've built, the network that I've built out. I was talking yesterday with my manager actually at Simplify, and I was just saying about how I've never been more busy than I am right now, in a good sense, in a good way. It's it's productive busyness, and when I think about like what I'm doing with EJL Marketing, there's always a lot on my plate, and there's a lot but those clients that I've nurtured over the years, just like yesterday being found through Google Business, and all the groundwork that I've done over the years to build up my personal brand, that I don't want to say that was easy, but it's methodical, right? So like for me, I've done these things week in and week out, and month in and month out, and quarter in, quarter out, year in and year out. There's that expectation that the work that you're doing is going to be fruitful. And so for me, like the thing that's been, I don't want to, again, it's not easy because there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And once you build it up, and once you put in the time and the effort, then it becomes easier because you're just, it's the snowball effect. You're just allowing it to run downhill.
Yeah. I talk to folks a lot about that, and I use the analogy of planting a garden when you think about building a business, because, you go out, you plant the garden, you water it, and it doesn't produce right away.
Yeah.
There's no lettuce, no tomatoes, no cucumbers, carrots, whatever you're growing. It takes some time to get there.
Yeah, and we talk about the exact same thing in marketing, right? So from a marketing perspective, what is marketing? It's the future potential, right? You're putting the message out there to an intended audience that may never heard of your services before, may not even know, that's this thing. And so you have to plant that seed, right? Not every seed grows into a tree that bears fruit, but if you don't plant the seed, you're definitely not going to get anything. So like at the core of it, like marketing is such that you're building that future potential in all these areas. And that's, again, the same thing with running a business. Like you have to plant these things to make sure that, again, it does have fruit at some point in time.
Yeah. Do you think that in terms of EJL, do you think there's an optimal balance of time you work on the business and time you work in the business?
Yeah, it's a great question because, like, again, time is a very valuable resource, and there's only a limited amount of it. So like when I look at my EJL marketing business, I try to do it early in the morning. I try to get those things knocked out working in the business, and then when we look at the working on the business, I don't spend enough time probably in that seat, looking at moving things forward and the future potential of EJL marketing. And really, that's born out of the fact that like right now I'm in that autopilot kind of phase where I'm not trying to grow it, because again, going back to the day job, like that piece of it is really growing. Like there's a lot that's happening, which is wonderful, and it's a huge blessing. But I really don't push EJL marketing a lot because I can't have both explode at the same time. Like, then I'd really have to start thinking about outsourcing some of this stuff, and I really don't want to get to that point because then that's going to stretch my time thin by having to have those people that are out there. So I think one of the hard things is understanding what to let go of. So
yeah, and that was my next category is work-life balance. So how do you manage the demands of running that business while maintaining time for yourself and your family and your faith?
Yeah. It's again, that's that time quotient is challenging, especially when
Do you have tools or processes or things that you kind of hold yourself to be able to keep that balance?
Yeah, I really, again, when it hits 5 o'clock, that's when it becomes family time. And then later at night, like, if I need to come back to stuff, I can. And, I'm not, as concrete with that, but, there are things in my life that are demanding from my time. And, like last night was coaching flag football for my 12-year-old. So like, at 6 o'clock we had to eat dinner, and by 6:30 we had to be out the door. And I was there. And then Tuesday night I was coaching my son's travel soccer team. So like, these are things that I have to be at, and I'm not online obviously during that. But in that example on Tuesday night at soccer, like one of my West Coast clients was calling me up and had a question, and like, I could dialogue with him on the ride home. And I'm very transparent with all my clients about who I am and the demands that I have at home, like time with my wife and time with my kids and time in the community. Like, these are all things that are super important for me. And I'm also I'm not a heart surgeon, right? I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm not, these are not, critical mass things that we're dealing with. So, I try to make sure that people understand that, like, what I'm doing is, important, but on the scale of importance, like, we're not saving babies here, right?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
There are things that can wait.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any tools that you use, digital tools, software, anything like that help you manage that time?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's where AI, it is the buzzword. Yesterday, like, when I was working through some stuff, like, it does make your job so much more, I don't want to say easy, but like, it makes it faster. Like, that you have to know how to use these tools, and there's so many of them that are out there. But I use ChatGPT to help workshop things and make sure that somebody brought it up the other day in a TED Talk environment, but they were just talking about how, like, if I already know the answer, I'll still ask ChatGPT because I may get a different viewpoint on it, just because it's going to give me something I may not have ever thought of, or it may confirm what I know. But there's using AI appropriately to be able to help expedite the work that's on my plate is something that again, 5 years ago was not a thing. And so I'm always quick to try stuff, like whether it's going back to the early 2000s when I was doing email marketing for myself, before it was really a big thing. I try to stay ahead of the game and use stuff to see if it's good for my clients as well. Like, I can't speak about it if I don't do it. So like, I've, again, built my own website. I've done my own Google ads. I've run ads in all these different areas, for myself, so that I can go to my clients and be like, hey, listen, I did this, it didn't work for me, or it did work for me. Like, you have to speak from experience, and you can only get experience if you're actually doing it.
Sure. Is there a moment or a milestone during the course of EJL where it stopped and really made you think, this is why I do what I do. This is why I created this company, right?
Yeah.
Is there a kind of a highlight there?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes right back to the very first client. I knew right there, that it was the right path for me. Again, God really put that on my heart. And, we know that, the Bible speaks to us and can guide us. The Holy Spirit is here for a reason, for us to be able to understand that, God has a plan and purpose. And when we fulfill that, we all have that why. We all have that drive. We all have, we want to do something great. And so when we're able to do it, and it's, divine, that elevates everything. So from the very first client, being able to have her come into my life, have her, have a pain point, me be able to solve it, and then be able to see the fruits of that, that labor go into, actual, benefit for her business, and to watch it take off from the very first client. I mean, I got to imagine that's, it's a pretty unique situation where, your first client, you're able to solve a pretty big pain point and set her on the right path. And so that, for me, like, that was a huge blessing.
So it was the ability to help her and help her business that was really what struck a chord. That was kind of the emotional component of what you do. And it's fascinating too, Eric. And talking with so many different people in so many different spaces around entrepreneurialism. I was on a session with a colleague who has a 5-location franchise, and I asked him that same question, and he's in a massage franchise, and it was all about connecting with people. And everybody I talked to, regardless of industry that they're in, regardless of how they started, how they got into entrepreneurialism, the things that touch people the most is when they're able to help other people, other human beings. Yeah. And I hear that time and time and time again. It's a really interesting thing.
Well, and I'll tell you, and I'll spin this forward as to why, right? So we are spiritual beings. And again, this is my faith, but it's true. It's true to me, and it is truth. But God designed us as spiritual beings for a reason, and that reason is to again connect with our divine source, but then also to connect with each other. If we are spiritual beings and we see each other as that, and we want to help each other, then that's a huge reason as to why we see that is that we are innately designed to seek that out, and our spirit is driven towards that. We're driven to God, and when we are driven to God, and we know that God's plan and purpose is to love us and then spread that love to others, like the Great Commission that Jesus lends to us is to go out and speak truth and love to others so that they may know that God loves them and that we can then have a right relationship with him. And that's what that speaks to is that, that franchise owner wants to help people because we are that embodiment of the Spirit to others.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, I think you said you're 45, 46.
Yep.
If you could go back and tell younger Eric something, what's one thing you would do differently or one thing you would tell your past self?
Yeah. And this is a question that gets brought up. I would say nothing. I would do nothing, right? Because the path that I was put on was put on that path for a reason. The failures, the mistakes, the good things, the bad things, all had a plan and purpose to lead me to where I'm at today. So if I change something, it's like the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
You go back and change one little thing, it's going to send you off on a whole different.
You might not be where you're at
and I would not be at where I'm at right now with you pointing out. If I did something back then, you and I would not be speaking right now.
Probably so.
And that would be sad.
So speaking of entrepreneurship and paths forward, if you were going to talk to somebody about getting into business for themselves, what are some practical steps you'd recommend for somebody who was exploring it?
Yeah, I mean, really going back to that local networking thing and just having people in your life, like, seek people out. I was talking to you earlier, but this morning I was talking to somebody from my agency that I used to work at, and she and I were talking about the path that I've gone forward with EJL Marketing, and she's like, I really need to start doing this, and like we talked about it, and I was like, yes, just do it. Like you need people in your life that can help workshop these things and the support network. The fascinating thing is like when I look at my local network, they want to do it for free almost. Like they want people to be successful. Again, going back to that drive, like we have a drive to help each other, right? And so like these people that are in my life, they've poured into my company, and a lot of them haven't charged me anything for it, So my CPA does, but I love her, so she's very valuable, and I'm more than willing to pay her for her services. But like I can't tell you how many people have given me advice and sat down with me and never charged me a dime for the words of wisdom that they've given me.
Is there anything you would say to them to prepare them emotionally or financially for the challenges that lie ahead in terms of starting your own business?
I think that you go back to my duality of working in both areas. It does give you a freedom from the burden of having to make it all happen on one thing. And going back, like I got laid off from my first job when they were going through a downsizing, and so there was a point of 2 months where the only income that I had was EJL Marketing, and I poured into that, and God provided a path forward, and it was obviously with Simplify, but it was one of those things that like at that time I really went into full drive within EJL Marketing to make it happen, and it did. God provided a way forward. It was fantastic. But to answer the question, it's like there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of things. So for me, just my experience with having the corporate job and the side gig has been beneficial because it does give you a safety net. But as with anything, there's that payoff or the balance of time, right? You have to be very, very good at managing time so that you're not dropping the ball in one area or the other.
Yeah. Just as we start to wrap up, let's have a little fun. I got some rapid fire questions I want to shoot at you real quick. If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, past or present, who would it be?
Elon Musk. I mean, he's obviously in the news a lot, and he's a fascinating dude, so I would pick Elon Musk right now.
Gotcha, cool. One business tool or app you can't live without?
ChatGPT.
Most unconventional piece of business advice you've ever received that actually worked?
I think it goes back to don't be afraid to fail. I think that's a pretty common one within the entrepreneurial world. But until you get out and go through it, like don't be afraid to fail is one you have to get comfortable with.
Yeah, I've always said there's no such thing as failure. You just achieved undesired results.
Exactly.
And it's true. If you think about it, you accomplished something. It just wasn't what you wanted. So it just gets you closer to what you want.
Yep.
If you had to describe your business in a movie title, what would it be?
My business in a movie title. The first one that comes to mind is Titanic, but that's just because it's funny.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, that's not. I'll go with Interstellar. How about Interstellar? That was
I like
a
that
good
one.
movie, and it talks about forward thinking.
There you go.
I like it.
One guilty pleasure that helps you unwind after a long day of running your business.
Actually, running. Running is my,
There
I
you go.
don't want to say guilty pleasure, but I love running. So I do it in a running group. I do it by myself. I do it in also weather. One of my favorite runs ever was running in a hurricane. That was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a summer, like late summer, early fall, and it was like really warm out. So like it was like running in a shower. It was awesome.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Eric, thanks very much for spending some time with us today. Folks, Eric Laylon from EJL Marketing. Really enjoyed having you on, and I hope, and I'm sure everybody got a lot out of our session today. So, Parnell Woodard from the Pivot Point, and look forward to seeing you all at some point in the future. Thanks again.